Good morning and welcome to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. My name is Sage Babalola. Thank God it's Friday. It's the last work day of the week. We're super excited for what the weekend has to offer. Of course, for the bulk of us who don't work over the weekend, it's a time of relaxation. It's a time to re-energize yourself, to get enough sleep, to do the research that you need for all the work of the coming week. But then again, don't forget that whilst you're doing all of this, it's important to take care of yourself. It's important to prioritize your health. And as much as work is important, your safety, your health is also equally important. Only a healthy person can make significant change in society. So please find time to rest over the weekend if you're able to. Well, welcome once again to radio. This is the Morning Express, and we started at 5 a.m. With different segments airing for your listening pleasure. Well, information, discussions around how to make the nation better, how we can be better people, we can be more informed. Achieving these aims is one of the primary reasons that we come on air every single morning on Mainland 98.3 FM. Information is power, right? And so we're trying to empower you to the best of our abilities. That is why we have this new segment called Trends in the Papers. This is a conversational program where we mostly review the stories that are being reported on the front pages of our newspaper, and we try to capture as much stories as we can. We discuss these stories, not just read you the headlines. And the most beautiful part of this is that we get feedback, which means that we're talking to you after you listen to us. We give you an opportunity to talk to us and tell us what you feel about these reports that have been analyzed earlier in the day. But then that particular segment is Mainland Focus, that would come up 10 minutes after we're done with Trends in the Papers. But basically, like I said, Trends in the Papers is a program that captures the essence of all the stories that have made it to the front pages of our dailies. And I'll be having a conversation, of course, with our in-house analyst Fᴜʟʟ, who will join us in just a few seconds over the phone. And whilst you're waiting to connect with Fᴜʟʟ, please be aware that we are also active on social media, which means that you can join our live stream using our social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube, if we're being specific. On these two platforms, you're able to watch everything that goes on live in the studio, and you can also contribute via the live chat option. So that on its own is an entire community, and we implore you to be a part of our social media community. We're also on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Mainland FM, but on Facebook and YouTube it's Mainland 98.3 FM. Well, Fᴜʟʟ joins us now via the phone as we begin conversations on our dailies. Fouad, good morning to you. How are you doing today? Thank God it's Friday, I guess.
Thank God it's Friday. Good morning, Sage. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you so very much. All right then. We'll start with the Punch newspaper, where in no particular order actually. We're just starting with the Punch newspaper, and we have the top story here. Telecom's tariff hike. Subscribers meet NCC today as Labour mobilizes for showdown. The rider to that, Labour officials talk tough, insist telcos must be prevented from exploiting Nigerians. Now, the National Association of Telecommunication Subscribers will engage the Nigerian Communication Commission on Friday, seeking a possible reversal of the 50% telecom tariff hike to 10% as the Nigeria Labour Congress signals readiness for the protest. The federal government approved a 50% increase after operators initially requested a 100% hike. However, subscribers are pushing plan to file a lawsuit next week to challenge the decision. Now, this hike is the first in over a decade, in fact 13 years if we're being specific, and is aimed at revitalizing the struggling telecom sector, which contributes about 14% to Nigeria's economy and also continue to spark widespread debate and controversies. Fouad, the NLC seems to be leading a charge, of course accompanied with the Nigeria Telecom subscribers. They're both leading a charge. They would like to take the telcos to court, not to completely eradicate the hike. They're mostly seeking a minimization of that hike. They're looking to go from 50% to 10%. What do you think of this request, a 10% hike? If the telcos are saying that 50% hike is still insufficient for all of our operations, and now the telecom subscribers, with the help of the NLC, of course, are threatening to take legal action to seek a reversal and 10% hike, do you think that this will be counterproductive at the end of the day? If the NLC, the NCC does agree for a reduction, do you think that we might be the one to bear the brunt of that reduction, seeing as the operations or the quality of service of the telcos might now be the proof of that insufficiency of the hike that the NLC is demanding?
Well, in this conversation, I think I'll be a bit circumspect and just try to be calm as possible as I can to address the NLC position on this matter. Because it's probably the most unreasonable position to take. And I don't know where the showdown threat is coming from, even though I know it's just hot air, empty threat that would amount to nothing. The Telecom Subscribers Association, I think they call them NASCOM or something. You know, we have a lot of associations. I never knew there was a Telecom Subscribers Association. And I think are more reasonable in their approach to the matter. So they're getting more, conversational, trying to negotiate. That's why you see that in the report they're talking about them meeting with the NCC and then probably looking at the legal option of approaching the courts on this matter. I don't know what will come out of that really. And you can see that also in that report, what it has said is that look, they are not against, they are completely against any attempt to boycott or shut down operations of the telecom operators. Because at the end of the day, it is the ordinary Nigerians that will suffer. And you can see that while there's this back and forth between NASCOM, organized labor, threatening shutdown, and all manner of things. In that same report, in Davos, Switzerland, just yesterday, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. ᴏᴜᴜ, said that, look, on the part of the government, they are not against. And so, Sage, I don't know where organized labor is coming from, this sudden energy to want to take on the telecom operators. You understand what I'm saying? Because they were alive. They were not dead. They were practically alive when everything spiraled out of control. And what are the telecom? Like I said, I'm not a stakeholder, I'm not an investor. We're just applying some common sense here. To say that, look, what are the things that are not good? Even manufacturers have said that, look, they've had to adjust the prices of their products. Service providers across board, not just the telecoms operators, have also done the same thing, simply aligning with the inflationary trends we have. And what are the things that have caused this thing? The labor organization, the labor union was alive when the government moved the price of PMS, moved the price of everything. Up till today, we are still talking about the killing, the excruciating, in the tough band A arrangement in the power sector that has seen most businesses shut down, that have seen people shut down operations. The Minister of Power was still saying that, look, as far as they are concerned, this band A arrangement are satisfied about 90% of customers on band A. And I said, I don't know where the Minister of Power is getting his own data from. And that, look, the plan is to move more people, move more Nigerians into the band A arrangement. A band A that is killing businesses, that is putting pain in the lives of Nigerians. To them, it is working, and more people have to be forced into this arrangement. So, you see, I know the telecoms operators will not even bother with them. They were looking for 100%. They reluctantly agreed to a 50%. And I'm sure they are going to move on. Again, the government has told you that they are not interested in price control. They are not interested in subsidy of any form. So, why the labor is supposed to face the government to tackle inflationary trends, to tackle the things that have led to rising cost of production, rising cost of operation, they are here shouting about the telecoms operators who are investors, who are business owners, who are also operating in a very tough economic climate. So it's fair for us to not bother with these labor guys who, I think what they are trying to do is just to tell us that they are still alive. For me, in terms of efficiency, they are practically dead. The moment I gave up, if you notice, consistently, I was one of the defenders of labor, especially on the negotiations for minimum wage. I kept saying that, it's not easy, to go to the regulation table with the government. They are going to come with all manner of things, propaganda, sabotage, and what have you. But the moment the organized labor leaders sat on the table with the president and got a meager 70,000 naira as minimum wage, and they did 7 GHOSA, I just gave up on them. From that moment, I said, these guys are just playing us, just deceiving us. They cannot be trusted. And so the same guys who could not negotiate their way out of poverty with the government are the ones here threatening the telecoms operators of a showdown. One useless showdown. And I don't think any Nigerians should take them serious. Added to that nonsense that we have in that story is that of the what is it called, NANS, National Association of Nigerian Students. Another empty, ineffective, association at this time. The NAS that we participated in cannot be the NAS that we have now as student union leaders. The NAS we have now, very ineffective, corrupt, useless, practically. I'm also talking of a showdown because telecoms operators have increased by 50%. It's a complete waste of time, really. I don't think we should bother ourselves with them. Nigerians have learned to move on with their lives. So far, we cannot hold the government to account to create the enabling environment that will make life better for the people. So it's private business owners who are also groaning on how to sustain their business that will be shouting on. I tell you that the labor leaders, the NAS people, and everybody shouting on this matter are just wasting their time. Nothing will come out of it.
All right. Well, that particular report you would find on the front page of the Punch newspaper. I beg your pardon. It's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. We're moving on to other reports now. Marketers seek 21 depot repairs as NNPCL spends 478 billion on private facilities. We have here oil marketers have expressed optimism about the rehabilitation of Nigeria's 21 depots by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited following the recent revival of the Port Harcourt and Warri refineries by the NNPCL. Although the National Oil Company has promised to get the depots running, dealers in the downstream oil sector told correspondent that it is important to hasten the revamp of the facilities as this would increase the gains of having functional refineries in Nigeria. They urged the national oil firm to take immediate and decisive steps to restore all ineffective fuel depots owned by the company across the country, and the national oil firm, who currently incurs extra cost in payments to private depots for handling its products, was tasked to revamp the 21 idle station for the benefit of Nigerians. Well, Fuad, in talking about whilst we used to import product, the NNPCL usually highlights that some of the things that increase their costs is the fact that they have to use private depots most times. But they do have depots. In fact, they have about 21, but then they are inactive. They're not currently functional, and so the marketers are asking the NNPCL to repair these depots so that at least that would minimize the cost that you have to pay to all these private depots to handle some of your operations and distribute a product. And so far so good. The NNPCL has spent about 478 billion naira on,
and why over 400 billion would have been spent by the NNPCL patronizing private depot owners as against the reasonable option of fixing their own depot, is to first ask ourselves, who are the owners of those private depots? That's number one. Number two, what interest does it serve the NNPC to continue to patronize the private depots? And are there indications or indices of vested interest in the way they continue to put monies into patronizing these private depots? You know, these are things we've seen consistently as elements of corruption in our system. You know, things that are owned by government, controlled by government, are left to decay, whereas private owners who provide the same service are supported, are given all the funding and patronage. And at the end of the day, by the time you check and recheck, you open the veil that have been used to cover those operations, you know that, look, there's always the elements of vested interest. In fact, the reason why the NNPC depots are not working is because the private depots are available. See, if you understand what I'm saying.
yeah.
The same way government institutions will not work because there are private people who can provide the service and government will be happy to patronize them. So I don't know whether the advice of the marketers will sink in for the NNPCL, because I must tell you that, look, there are a lot of vested interest in that arrangement. There are people who are benefiting from that thing. Don't be deceived. Because you have 21, none is working or practically working optimally. And then the private depots are the ones you're happy to patronize. So you must know that, look, there's something about it, there's something to it, and there's something in need for people who have decided to abandon their own thing to patronize the private depot. So, but again, it's just an advice from the marketers to wait to see whether the NNPCL will listen to this advice and take action on it.
That's on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. We're moving on to, please forgive me, I'm using the version. I'm pulling out the stories is a tad bit difficult. But then we also have here, Oyebanji kicks against Sharia court in Ekiti, cautions opposition. So we have Ekiti state government said on Thursday that the existing legal structures in the state does not recognize Sharia court or independent Sharia arbitration panel. The State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Mr. Dayo Akpata, said this in a statement on Thursday in reaction to news reports that the first public sitting of Ekiti State Sharia panel occurred. According to reports, the Sharia panel had resolved 2 marriages disputes last week. The Sharia panel was quoted as saying it aimed to provide arbitration based on Islamic jurisprudence. But Akpata, in his Thursday statement, said laws in the state do not recognize Sharia courts, stressing that the existing judicial structure is adequate to address all kinds of dispute. Governor Biodun Oyèbánjí-led administration described the development as a plot by the opposition to score political points against him ahead of next year's election, and the AG cautioned against activities that could negatively affect the state government policy of peaceful coexistence among the residents. But just like Oyo State, or as we saw in the report a few weeks ago, that Seyi Makinde of Oyo State has said that, well, they don't recognize any Sharia court whatsoever issues. They try to resolve civil matters according to Islamic laws, and so far they've recorded at least 2 successes in resolving marriage dispute. But then we have the governor here saying we already have existing judicial structures that caters to civil matters like that one. We do not need a Sharia court or a Sharia panel to aid in the resolution of civil or domestic matters like that one. But we also have people that are saying that the outright dismissal of this might actually signal disconnect between people of different faiths and people who have different beliefs within the state. What are your thoughts, Brad?
You know, say there are people who are just troublemakers, and it's unfortunate that instead of us, focusing on very important matters of nation building that centers around the improvement of the lives of the people, we are here talking about people who just want trouble, unnecessary trouble, just people who like trouble. It was one of the conversations we raised yesterday in the Situation Room with Senator Ojudu, former Senator Ojudu. And he said that look, he's a Muslim, he's from Ekiti State, one of the stakeholders, one of the elder statesmen of Ekiti State, and that he knows that in Ekiti, anything Sharia court can never happen. It will not even stand. Not in the widest imagination of people who are even trying to bring it into the state because of the inclusiveness that exists when it comes to religious tolerance as far as Ekiti is concerned. In fact, in his own statistics, there are only about 40% Muslims in Ekiti, and about 60% of Ekiti people are Christians. But they intermarry, they interrelate. There are no issues of religious violence or discord as far as Ekiti is concerned. If you look at the story very well, see, are we talking about a court here, a panel, or an arbitration panel? You don't understand what I'm saying. Let us say, for example, say a church or a religious house, a Muslim religious association decides to set up an arbitration panel within their fold and decide to use it to solve marriage issues, contractual issues, social issues generally among their members. I don't think that should be any cause for concern. Can a court, for example, exist in a state without all the legal and legislative instruments of the state? Is it possible that a court will suddenly emerge in a state? A real court would emerge in a state, would start to operate in a state without all the legal constitutional instruments of the state. It's not possible. Yes, there are people who may have it in their minds to do it, but at least in the southwest, so that I know, I'm from the south, I'm from Lagos, it's dead on arrival. Even as a Muslim, I would not even support it. But for an arbitration panel, why not? Look, we used to have a program in those days. They call it Boromiro. You know it, Abby?
How would I know that?
You don't know? Oh, yeah. And that was a panel of eminent Nigerians, of elder statesmen who have on a TV program helped to resolve a lot of issues in arbitration.
I'm sorry. Okay, it was just a group of people who came together and they were mediating civil matters.
Mediating, just like mediation, arbitration. In fact, as I speak to you, see, Mainland FM, in collaboration with Mama Rainbow and a few other eminent Nigerians, I also try to come up with something like that to help resolve marital issues. Because, our program on Saturday, Mama Rainbow, has touched on a lot of marital issues, and people have been calling to say that they want a situation where the show can become some form of arbitration panel to help resolve marital issues. If you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So again, like the governor is saying, maybe there are politicians who just want to make or score cheap points against him. Say, something is coming, But I'm saying that, look, as far as the Southwest is concerned, the Southwest that I know, any attempt by anybody to bring in anything Sharia is dead on arrival. There could be religious arbitration panel to resolve issues that can exist. But in fact, it has always existed quietly amongst religious organizations and what have you. But to say a Sharia court can exist in the Southwest without all the legal and constitutional instruments backing it, I doubt it. So don't let us waste too much time on it.
But I'm sorry, it's a sensitive matter, and I really would like us to explore all angles. Do
All
you
right.
believe that maybe it is the religious connotation to this that is causing the anxiety? Now, mind you, Fuad, many times we sat here on this radio station and we heard people call in, for example, and say things like, oh, there's this notion that they want to Islamize the country, there's this and this, and many times even you yourself have had to correct people that it is not possible. The law cannot even allow for something like that to happen. Do you think that this is maybe a manifestation of concerns and fears and ideas like that one?
Our politicians are smart. They know how to use this thing. That's why the government is saying that, look, political opponents in the state, for example, are decided to frame the idea, oh, the man is bringing Sharia into Ekiti. You understand?
Yeah.
And on this issue of Islamization, the people that started the Islamization noise, where are they today? Remember the Muslim ticket noise? The man that was the loudest, that had the loudest voice against the Muslim ticket, he's now working for the same Muslim ticket.
You're talking about Daniel Bwala, right?
It's not be Daniel Bwala. Now them now. He was the most vocal then. Oh, my conscience, my faith. Oh, Kiliko. Nigeria is a country of Kiliko. And I was telling a lot of our listeners then that don't pay attention to these guys. They are just merely distracting you. They know what they are doing. The real issues are there for us to address. Don't listen to them. And I remember a lot of people follow that narrative there. And here we are today now. The same people that started the agenda, the noise, the narrative against Muslim ticket are now in the same Muslim ticket working for the Muslim ticket. The people they dragged along in that conversation now, they've left them in the cold. So it's just for us to understand that, look, these distractions will always come. Politicians are the same all over the world. The same thing you see in the Western world now. Politicians are deliberately framing issues around cultural anxiety to win elections, right? The same thing you find politicians do here. They look at the sentiments of the people and they just raise it. Throw the thoughts around. If you follow it, you are your own. Because at the end of the day, they are not even committed to what they are saying.
Well, that particular story is on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. Welcome if you're just joining the program. This is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. My name is Sage Babalola. I'm having conversations with Fuad Said. We're looking at the front page of the Punch newspaper, from discussing the telco's tariff hike, or the telecoms tariff hike, to discussing conversations around the allegation of Sharia court being established in Ekiti State, and the governor kicking against it and warning opposition, preventing some sort of politicization of this particular idea. We also had a conversation about the rehabilitation of NNPCL depots so as to minimize the amount of money, over 4 billion that they have spent, 400 billion, I beg your pardon, that they have spent, engaging the services of private depots. Now, Fuad, let's have a conversation here about retirement or forced retirement. Falana urges President Tinubu to reinstate 20 generals and 18 orders. There's really not much to this, but basically these were individuals that were fired under the Buhari administration for certain allegations, right? And then they were forced to retire, I think as far back as 2016. And now Femi Falana, who is their representative, legal representation, is asking that this government reinstate them, because they were forcefully retired, which means that they might not enjoy certain benefit from being in service. But if you reinstate them, at least they're able to enjoy the benefit of retirement. What do you think, Fuad?
Well, there's a court ruling on it. So if that's the only reason why we expect the government to reinstate them, just like Femi Falana and the lawyer to these senior officers is saying, that look, the industrial court are ruled on the matter, and I said that, look, these guys should be reinstated. You understand? So that they can get they were forced to retire, which means that, look, they had more years to serve in the Nigerian military. And look at the allegations, say, it's captured in the story. that they were partisan, they participated, they were actively involved.
Yeah. Let me read the allegation. Now, according to the then military authorities, the offenses included partisanship during the general election of 2015, involvement in arms procurement, fraud, and jeopardizing national security.
Were they giving fair hearing? It would have been nice to know whether there was any trial of some sort. And then how do you know if a military officer, for example, had been partisan in an election? What happened? So, but for the courts, which is the right court, the court with the jurisdiction to rule on industrial matter of this nature, to have ruled and said that, look, reinstate these guys. Why is it that courts' rulings are not obeyed in Nigeria? So it's not even about, what is right or wrong now. It's about just ensuring that, look, since we operate a constitutional democracy, it is wrong for a court ruling not to be implemented. And on that basis, I think the president should look into it. The court has ruled on this matter. These guys can be reinstated, but again, there's a lot of issues around the military structure. Some of them are major general, some of them brigadier general. How would they fit into the military structure now if they are reinstated? That's just the big question that comes to my mind.
Right. I mean, would you retire those or demote those that are already occupying some of these?
And there are some who are their juniors who are now in those positions now. So how are they going to fit into the military structure? Because I think this happened around maybe 2015, 2016 or so.
It's on page 12. It's on page 12 of the Punch newspaper. Well, speaking of police, we have police post 10,000 constables, plan 30,000 annual recruitment. The 10,000 police constables recruited last year by the Nigeria Police Force passed out of various police colleges on Thursday after training for 6 months. Now, the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Egbetogun, disclosed that the new policemen had been posted to be a state of origin for community policing and added that he was targeting 30,000 annual recruitment in line with President Bola Tinubu's approval. But I think something of it happened here in Lagos too. We were there. The news.
Yes. And they've been posted to different places. I think beyond adding more men to the Nigerian police force, better equipment, better remuneration, right?
Yes.
Better working condition. Our police stations should get better. The era of getting to police stations without power, era of getting police stations with stinking smell in the cells should end. The police station should be a place where people can go to if there's a need for them to report cases or get the police involved in any matter. Be so comfortable to walk in there to talk about their case with the police. I've seen a number of improvements in police stations around Lagos, I must say. But that's not the same thing across the country. There was a time, I'd seen a police station somewhere in Dubai. And there is one police station of Palace. And we were on the road one day, and then the guy just drove close to our own vehicle. And you know what the guy was driving? A police officer.
A Ferrari?
He was driving a G-Wagon.
Oh.
A police car.
Wait, hold on.
G-Wagon.
Is that like the police car or like his personal vehicle or like
a police car? A police car. Not police, it's not his personal vehicle.
What is a G-Wagon?
G-Wagon. And the guy was just feeling cool, playing music, looking at us. Oh, you these Africans, you are here to look at what is happening.
But that's probably what he was thinking. That's probably not what he was thinking. Why?
No, the way he looked at us,
that's probably not what he was thinking. He was just looking at you.
The way he looked at us, we're feeling very cool. One young guy like that with very clean police uniform, in his, police G-Wagon, just enjoying himself. So we were there on the other side of the road, and he just looked at us and said, I knew that was what he was in his mind. I can read people's minds.
But now for you. Okay, what am I thinking now? Anyways, that report is on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. The interesting thing is they're also going to be sent to their state of origin for a little bit of community policing, since they understand the terrain. They are trained now, and they could aid.
A nice one.
Yeah, they could aid in the security of their state, at least for a little bit, before they're given more permanent responsibilities. That's on page 10 of the Punch newspaper. Now, moving to page 2, we have opposition cautions against diversion of 4 billion naira household bailout. Major opposition parties in Nigeria have urged the All Progressives Congress-led federal government to be transparent in the disbursement of 4 billion naira fund to deserving vulnerable households. The party also warns that the fund could be distributed among members of the ruling APC, similar to what was allegedly done with many of the palliative released by the government. The concerns were raised in separate interviews with the Punch. Now, the federal government on Thursday approved 4 billion naira for conditional cash transfers to support vulnerable households across Nigeria. The announcement was made during the launch of the 2025 Nigeria Humanitarian Needs and Response Plan at the United Nations House in Abuja, and the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Professor Ntawa Yuwalda, outlined the intervention is aimed at addressing the country's growing humanitarian crisis, and these efforts are designed to assist the most vulnerable members of society. So, Fuad, the conditional cash transfer, the one that a lot of people are actually opposed to because they believe it's an absolute waste of resources. Opposition is now citing that even if you insist on distributing this cash, please see to it that you're not distributing it to party members and cronies. At least distribute it to the vulnerable Nigerians that actually deserve it. Fuad, I need you to first of all speak to use of resources. If you have 4 billion naira on you, aren't there more aren't there better initiatives, would I say, that you could use this for, such that the bulk of Nigerians will benefit from it, rather than the distribution of this cash that would most likely not be consistent? And also, what say you about the allegations that most of your palliative distribution as the ruling party mostly just goes to your party member and individuals that you're friends with?
No, that's what will happen now.
I mean, a little bit of optimism. Optimism.
Optimism. How? Where is the optimism going to come from? The ones the initiatives of this distribution of cash that we've done, where did it end up? We have 2 ministers now who are in trouble. We don't even know what's up with their case. How far we have gone with their case. So on the same thing, you want me to be optimistic that 4 billion to be distributed to people will not end up in private pockets, will not end up in cesspool of corruption, and will not probably end up in the hands of party members who don't even need the money. Because, okay, let's start this way. See,
okay,
what list are we using? Where is the list? Which list do we have to use for this?
I have no idea. They'd spoken about a social register one time, but the credibility of that register is still in question.
Professor Nantawe himself, or all the new man, cannot even say there's a list anywhere he wants.
Fuad.
Yes.
They're going to also use an NIN-based register. Remember, they said that last week, that they're collating NINs and they're going to use that. Once they have your NIN. Are you also
aware that the most vulnerable Nigerians don't even have bank accounts?
True. Which is why they're going to
so how they and the reason is cash transfer.
Yeah, exactly. Via the NIN. So
how are they going to capture the most vulnerable who probably don't even have any NIN anywhere, who are not captured on anything? Remember that the minister there was doing 500,000 distribution. They will carry it to a market square like this.
Yeah.
And begin to give it out to the head. But this one is transfer. So how do you because the most vulnerable, I can tell you, live in locations that don't have banks. They are not even banks. They are part of the majorly unbanked population in Nigeria. See, this one is just money for the boys. The money for the boys I will not interpret. It can help you.
I will do no such thing. But then
why are you always running away from things like this? People to say it the way it is.
No, it just stresses me.
I said a part of it, just let me complete and say to people what it means to create money for the boys in government.
Again, what structures do we have in place for us to actually monitor?
No structure. Zero structure. Say you heard it from me. There's no structure anywhere.
Allow me to finish asking the question of what?
That can create a transparent transfer of funds to the most vulnerable in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Where is the structure? Where is the data to work with?
I mean, we need
just tell me. Even the man should come and tell us the data he wants to work with, and how transparent the data is. He should come and justify it here.
I mean, there's still conversations around the need for census, so we actually know how many people we're working with. That's the most important thing. Most of these things are done via estimation, and so the inaccuracy is always very, very loud. But here we go, the opposition saying that if you insist on distributing this money, make sure it actually gets to those who need it. Don't distribute it among
If it was your opposition that was distributing something like this, they would do the same thing they are saying they should.
Okay.
This will also give it to their party members.
It's on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. That's where you find this report. We're about to segue now to the Guardian newspaper. It still trends in the papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're live on social media. We're streaming on Facebook and on YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. On Facebook, if you want to be more specific and just go straight to the live stream, is www.facebook.com/Mainland 98.3 FM. It takes you right to the live stream. Now for Guardian newspaper, Heroes of School Sport, we have how Nigeria can leverage tertiary institution untapped talents. That's what it's telling us about how we can actually take people from schools, talented individuals from schools, train them so they could represent the country in international games. I'm trying to really maximize time here, Fuad, but I read the report, and this is me summarizing that report. We have a lot of outside the country, Fuad. Outside the country, Fuad, we see people who actually get scholarships from sport, especially those who play basketball. At the NBA, there's recruitment, and then you actually enjoy a scholarship so that after your scholarship, you actually get to play for them and they make their money. There's a mutual benefit for you, the player. But then we don't have that kind of policy. We don't have enough training for these individuals. We don't have enough scouts. There's really no structure for how we can leverage talented sportsmen in our institutions and also offer them some sort of benefit like scholarships, amongst other things.
You said it all, Sage. You know, in most tertiary institutions abroad, in the Western world, once you participate in any sport, once you are identified as a sports person in any sport at all, there's almost a 100% guarantee of scholarship for you.
Yes.
Sport, so either you are playing basketball, football, or anything, so far you have a sport in you, a talent of any sport in you, it's almost a 100% guarantee that you get a scholarship. In fact, while you are filling the form to get admission, they first ask you whether you have any sporting talent, or you want to be a part of a sport. So, because they understand what it means to catch them young, and it's not just at the tertiary level, at even the primary school level, secondary school level, you have all manner of activities to catch these talents when they are raw, refine them into people that are going to be on the world stage and take the world. But here we are, in most of our tertiary institutions, what sporting facilities do we even have? Go to most of the tertiary institutions today, go and look at our sporting facilities. It's almost near zero. Even national sporting facilities, not even talk of the school. How many stadiums do we have in the country now that can host international matches? I'm not even talking about schools, though. I'm talking about national sporting facilities. Every time now that the Eagles have to play football in the country, they go to Uyo. I think that's it. Because probably other stadiums are not even fit to host those kind of matches. So like every other thing that we talk about, we just talk about these things. We are not committed to it. We are not going to fund it. We would rather fund 4 billion that we are going to distribute that will end up in the pocket of the boys. But those are the kinds of money that are going into things like this, so that we can develop our sport. It's supposed to be an economy on its own. Say, sport is supposed to be another economy on its own, just like tourism, just like agri. Nations all over the world build their sporting industry to the point where it becomes a major contributor to their GDP. What does sport contribute to our GDP? Say, I'm not sure it does 1%.
Well, that particular report is on page 4 and 5 of the Guardian newspaper. We have here inflation, 13 million more Nigerians at risk of falling below poverty line in 2025, says report. The riders, CBN upbeat on 4.17% GDP growth in 2025, inflation ease. Nigeria eyes forex stability as high MPR drive cost. Trump's oil drilling push could lower global prices and create revenue trade-off. Now, rising inflation, high interest rate, and naira depreciation could push an additional 13 million Nigerians below the national poverty line by 2025. This is according to a new report titled 2025 Nigerian Budget and Economic Outlook by PricewaterhouseCoopers International Limited. The report says that macroeconomic pressure points such as rising inflation, high interest rates, naira depreciation might drive at least 13 million more people below national poverty line by 2025. The PwC noted, and I quote, "The number of people living below the national poverty line is projected to increase by 13 million, attributing the rise to the country's worsening inflation and cost of living." It also highlighted these economic headwinds as major contributors to the projected increase in poverty levels. In fact, the president of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Chief Francis Meshoye, disclosed that the manufacturing sector faced severe challenges in 2024, driven by macroeconomic issues such as high inflation, soaring interest rates, and depreciation of the naira. But on a positive note, the Central Bank of Nigeria is projecting economic growth by 4.17% this year that will be driven by ongoing reforms and stabilizing inflation, Governor Olayemi Cardoso has said yesterday.
Who do you want to believe, between the PCW guys who are probably working on the better data? You understand? And look at the factors they've highlighted that will drive 18 million Nigerians into the poverty line. They talked about what? Rising inflation, rising interest rates, and what? The tough economic climate we have in the country. That in 2025, 13 million Nigerians will be driven into the poverty line, below the poverty line, sorry. And then you have Mr. Cardoso, who is telling you that there will be a 4.1% growth in the economy. Yeah. And things are going to get better. I also believe who you want to believe. I also believe who I want to be. I would rather believe these people because the realities are there. Opinions may differ. The fact is the fact. And what these price water guys are saying is not even different from what we have been saying there. The government has told you that they want to drive down inflation, from 34.8% now to 15%. How? How is it going to happen? When we are still dealing with rising tariffs. As we speak, even the power sector guys are still pushing the minister that they want to increase their tariffs. You know, he has said that no, he will not do increase in tariff again, but he wants to move more people into band A, move people into poverty. That's what he's saying indirectly. Now, no, we should do more to move more Nigerians into band A. And what it means indirectly is that he wants to move more people into poverty. And that's why the first order guys are saying that with all of these things you are doing, 13 million Nigerians in 2025 will be driven below the poverty line. And it is just what it is. It's, like I said, opinions. Luckily, these are economists. These are experts, right?
Yeah.
Who are saying these things. It's not us. They might say we are not economists, but we have common sense. And our common sense in the analysis of the things we said there consistently now aligns with what the experts are saying. But if Mr. Cardoso is saying something else, everybody believe what they want to believe. We are all here to see.
Fuad, it would seem that the LCCI also stands with the PWC because the LCCI is also warning on page 7 that inflation dead body would actually hinder Nigeria's economic recovery. So it seems like the CBN and the CBN governor is on his own with his optimism about economic growth because the LCCI economics that are recognized across the world are saying that the reverse is the case. If we continue on this trend, we would have a difficult time fixing our economy.
I think Mr. Cardoso has his head in the moon somewhere. And he has his own reality, and what he's saying different from what the experts are saying. So we're going to see who is going to be correct at the end of the day.
For the whole CBN governor. Okay. That's on page.
What?
CBN governor.
So because he's the CBN governor, what does he do to me? Does his position change anything for me? Some of his policies are even the reasons why we are complaining about the excruciating poverty in the land.
Yeah, the
and so a whole CBN governor to mean what to me precisely?
You know, his expertise is what I'm talking about. I mean, if he's
CBN governor, okay, so what has the expertise brought to us? Don't go. As we speak now, that expertise that we are talking about, and who says he's the best for the job? He's the best fit for the job.
I mean, there were questions around his, appointment as CBN governor that just because you've headed banks before does not mean that you can deal with national economic issues. That was actually raised before his appointment, but that's fine. It's on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper, and also the story of the LCCI as well is on page 7. So let's move on to other stories. But federal government disburses 116.18 billion student loans, approved 4 billion for vulnerable households. We have here Nigerian Education Loan Fund (NEL Fund) has disbursed 116.184 billion for institutional loans and upkeep of students across 176,252 beneficiary institutions in the country as of January of 2025. This is the managing director Akintunde Soya indicating the fund distributed under the Nigerian Student Loan Scheme has benefited 680,658 students in universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education, and the federal government also approved 4 billion for conditional cash transfers to support vulnerable student loans have been disbursed, and aside from the 4 billion that is given to vulnerable Nigerians, but for NEL Fund specifically, at least over 100 billion has been disbursed to students. Do you think this is great work, and what metrics do we use to measure the effectiveness of the distribution of these monies?
Well, congratulations to all the students who have gotten these monies. Well, there are still questions around the sustainability of the entire arrangement.
Yeah.
How to
funding,
NEL Fund arrangement, funding, and all of that. So because again, what NEL Fund simply takes care of is to find a way to, give some support to students who will not be able to fund their education at this time, so they have access to this loan. There will always be questions around whether it is a loan we need now, or a heavily subsidized educational system that allows the most poor and vulnerable to be able to go to school, and have access to quality and qualitative education. Because again, it's not just about the funding or the loans you give to students. What is the current state of our university, of our tertiary institutions, say, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of facilities, in terms of even remuneration for our lecturers, the people who teach these students? There's a lot that we need to do for tertiary education beyond this level. Yes, the students who have access to these things will take advantage of it, which is not bad. But I'm talking about a tertiary education system that can take Nigeria, away from this over-reliance on foreign technology. It requires a lot of funding. And I'm not saying that commitment. What we are talking about now is autonomy. This is the time that government must still commit a lot of resources to funding tertiary education, so that we can begin to bring the talent out in our young ones. So, again, for people who are able to get the loan, good luck to them. But we still have to talk about how sustainable the entire arrangement is, considering some of the issues that have been raised in recent time around this NEL thing.
Right. I mean, they had initially even proposed maybe scrapping TEP fund and using the money for NEL fund.
And you can see that the lecturers and ASPA
they absolutely kicked against it. Yeah.
You created NEL fund, find a way to fund it.
You created NEL fund, find a way to fund it. That's on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. I'll read the rest of the headlines that we have here. Ondo government diffuses tension as cows allegedly destroys 265 million naira crops. I know that there's the whole ranch arrangement for it, which is more or less the only solution that is being proposed to issues like this one, where nomadic farmers take their cows to these farms and then they destroy crops. Well, the Ondo government is currently trying to mediate a recent incident like that one, where a total of at least 265 million crops were allegedly destroyed by these cows. Do you think that maybe we should start considering the ranching system more seriously?
Apart from, yes, the ranching system, the most reasonable thing to do at this time, but it's even devilish for any elder to move cows into a farm and destroy that number of crops. What millions of naira? I mean, the person blindly, he didn't see that the place was not a grassland, that these were crops. And those are the things that lead to problems, that leads to clashes. Because for you to move your cows into, at least you were moving them before you got into that place, and you must have seen that, look, this is a farm ahead of you. You probably have diverted those things, you moved them, and you saw that those things were eating those things up. Destroy farm worth millions of naira, hundreds of millions of naira. The ranching thing, I don't know whether there's anybody that's even intentional about the ranching system, because it takes a whole lot. There will be a lot of political will and a lot of commitment to ensuring that, look, these nomads are made to adopt this new and better system of livestock farming. They still want to move these cows around. It's almost like a cultural thing for them. It's a lifestyle for them. The lifestyle is going to be problematic. To get them to adopt the new system, also problematic.
Well, the Ondo government has actually approached the court to temporarily suspend the nomadic activities whilst they are trying to sort out this issue. It's temporary whilst they investigate. It doesn't mean that they've absolutely banned it, but just to hold them off first so that we don't see another incident like this one whilst they are currently investigating the one they have at hand. It's on page 28. Other headlines here: Trump's tariff, new trade barriers unsettle world leaders and agencies. We have fuel tanker explosion, why federal government must mandate life insurance for victims, is on page 8. We have over 20 killed as bandits Boko Haram faction clash. There's war even amongst criminals at this time.
You continue to fight.
It's on page 30. That's where. And for a junta-led Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger to unveil common passport. It's on page 7. They really are serious.
Those guys are moving on.
Yes, they are.
They're doing their own thing.
First of all, they sent out France, or at least asked them to pull out their military. They pulled out of ECOWAS, and now
they have a uniform currency now.
Common passport.
Don't be surprised. They come up with a common currency.
It's on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. That's everything that we have for you this morning. We'll go on a break. Come back at 8:40 for Mainland Focus. Don't go anywhere. We're the sound of Lagos Mainland 98.3 FM. Thank you, Fuad. We'll be with you in a bit.